with Ambassadorial, Amber and supplied indigenous material, and Ambassadorial was using this in his seminars, in the material I presented in the seminars in his college, his theological college, etc., in Melbourne, in Tom Vale. The Pope and Dr. Farid as well agree that this is something which we need to be more daring talking about, because a lot of youth is being lost, and lots of people have been lost, and lots of families have been damaged, and lots of children have suffered. And the collateral damage from what we are going to talk about is huge. This is not a problem which happens once in the blue moon, or 1 in 100, or 1 in 1,000. This is a social problem which affects a great ratio of the population in New Zealand and around the world, and in Egypt as well. There are many, the title today, the submitted title here,
the title today, binge drinking problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mina?
Binge drinking problem.
الصوت مش انا مش سامعك. المهم
The title was binge drinking problem and its associated problems. Probably couldn't hear me even because I just sat on a plastic bag, that's why.
It's not just about binge drinking. It's about the link between drinking and sex and relationships and families and the structure of the society and the complications, the problem and the solutions. احنا مش هنتكلم بس على المشكلة، احنا هنتكلم على الحل كمان. لما انت تقول لناس انك when you talk to people about having a solution for these problems, they think you are wasting time and joking, and if it was this easy, people will have found it out long time ago. So I will share with you a presentation which was presented in attendance of Prime Minister and leaders of oppositions and 82 agencies representing the family in New Zealand. I learned few things more since this presentation, but the presentation, لو تاخدوا بالكم, if you concentrate, it's a circle, and the circle can go in both directions as well. You will be able to link any point in the circle across to the other point. I call it the circle of social disintegration or social decay. في كلام كبير جامد قوي هيتقال في الكلام في المحاضرة دي. There is very strong words, there is very sometimes bad language, but this is exposing the truth, understanding the problem, understanding how everybody is going about it the wrong way. The church is not addressing the problem properly. The government is going the wrong way about diagnosing and sorting out these problems. Actually, they are going in the wrong direction, making the problem worse. The education system is making it worse. The police is making it worse. You will be really surprised. So let us start the presentation, and then we can take questions. لفني بقى عشان نشوف معاهم لو سمحت. انت حلقت.
When I first started this, I called it the biggest threat
باين عليك الحمام.
to our children, our country.
انتوا تشكروا ربنا ان فادي معاكم، لان مينا ما كانش هيعرف يعمل حاجه من ده.
And our society, and the reason that this is what I believe is the case. This is the biggest problem for New Zealand. The newspapers called it time to make a change, and when I presented it to the medical fraternity, I called it, Doctor, I can't remember who I slept with, because this is what I see every day, and this is a sentence which links the two problems together, which is the binge drinking culture and the promiscuity. This is the easiest way I thought I explain what the problem is and how to sort it out. If you remember this is the circle of decivilization or the circle of social decay. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and I could see this in front of me. I thought, this is really very easy to explain it. Everybody thinks they understand the problem. And sometimes people say, oh, look. What do you know what you don't know? Well, just tell us the answer. And I say, no, you don't understand the problem really very well, because a 7 years old understands what money is, his mother understands what money is, and the governor of the Reserve Bank understands what money is. So yes, we understand what binge drink is, but some people say, look, it is the same. We have had this problem for years, for tens of years. And I say, no, it is not the same. The drinks are not the same, and the drunks are not the same. Let me talk first about the first S, which is substance abuse. The drinks are not the same, and then I will go to the point of how big is the problem and how we are shooting ourselves in the feet. The drinks are not the same because now, with the mixing of stimulants with the RTDs with the drinks, it takes an average of extra 5 drinks for a girl to start feel wobbly on her feet compared to if she's drinking just alcohol. With this particular mix, you are more likely to have angry drunks rather than happy drunks. And this gives almost a 200 to 300% possibility that this person will drink drive or sit beside a drunk driver, commit sexual assault, violent assault, or a crime. Is this worth thinking about? Why is this happening? There's a bit of science here, and the science is that the stimulant has got a shorter half-life than the alcohol. So when the stimulant effect, with the extra 5 drinks on board, when the stimulant effect goes, boom, the girl who was walking around a few minutes before looking very happy falls in a heap. And she thinks that her drink has been spiked. No, 99% of the time the drink has not been spiked. This is the way this drink is designed to work, if you overdo it. And then these girls get taken advantage of. They get raped, they can't remember who they slept with. Last week, you heard the story about the guy, the son of Ruth Aitken, on the aeroplane peeing on the passengers. He can't remember a thing. Okay, so now, how big is the problem and how are we shooting ourselves in the feet? The problem is that we have 700,000 binge drinkers in New Zealand, and almost 200,000 of those are alcoholics. If you think each of them is related to 3 or 4 people, then it's affecting the majority of the people. How are we shooting ourselves in the feet as a country, as a society? In our trial to do something good, we are doing something really bad. So in our trial to condemn the drink driving, we are promoting drunkenness as an acceptable situation. So in other words, there is a culture. If you remember what happened yesterday, you haven't had enough fun. Which means it's absolutely perfect to get drunk so long as you don't drive. And it's absolutely perfect to have sex so long as you don't catch an STD or an unwanted pregnancy. So, who is doing that? Who is shooting us in the feet? Everybody. Even the police, even the ads which are trying to control the problems. For many years, what have you watched on television? You watched ads, a sober driver, and 4 drunk people in the car. And it's giving it the thumbs up. So it doesn't matter what happened on the passenger seat, it doesn't matter what happens on the back seat, so long as you have a sober driver. So what does this mean? It means that, think about it. If you wanted to teach a child not to steal, by saying, do not steal handbags from older women, do not steal handbags from older women, do not steal handbags from older women. Is this a good advice or a bad advice? Yeah, it is a bad advice although you mean a good thing, because you set the bar too low. So what about stealing from older people? What about stealing? What about shoplifting? So you set the bar too low. So we did set the bar too low by educating these people again and again and again, every day, even the police, giving the message, take one for the team. Be the sober driver. So everybody, even the police, is saying it's absolutely fine to be drunk so long as you don't drive. We shot ourselves in the feet. We set the bar too low. We are teaching them not to steal by saying do not steal handbags from all the women. So, I'm making the presentation very simple so that you remember it. 5 letters, 5 words. In any activity in the world, whether you are killing somebody, whether you are peeing in the street, whether you are buying a piece of chocolate, any activity lies under these categories. Is this a laser thing? Criminalize, decriminalize, trivialize, normalize, advertise, glamorize, and idealize. So, if you wanted to prevent something, you don't go and glamorize and idealize it. So let us take, for example, prostitution, which was being talked about. So prostitution has been decriminalized. It's in category 2. But it should stay there, just decriminalized. Because if you were to not just move it one notch to trivialize or normalize, then we should go to the secondary schools and tell the girls, all right, if you want to earn good money, meet a lot of people, nice people, and have a challenge, why don't you take prostitution as a career? Should we do that? So this is where some of the activities have to stay in the category of decriminalized. But where are we with drunkenness? Are we in category 2? No, we are actually here. We are not only decriminalizing, trivializing, we are normalizing, advertising, and glamorizing, and idealizing it every day. Not only to the tune of paid advertisement for $250,000 a day, and if this didn't work, they wouldn't have paid the money, but the unpaid advertisement. I'll give you an example. After my Sunday program on television talking about that, in the following few minutes there was, this is your life. And Prime Minister was sitting with the Mad Butcher, being honored with the knighthood. What did the Mad Butcher say? The guy is a wonderful guy. He has done a lot of good things in his life. He deserved the knighthood, etc. But I'm just showing you what unpaid advertisement is. He said, I'm an ordinary New Zealander. I say the F word, and I get drunk as often as I can. So this is unpaid advertising. This is normalizing and advertising and glamorizing. He was bragging about how he gets the All Blacks and other people drunk. Here we go.
By 16, most of them have been totally trolled at least once.
Yeah. It's become quite a bit of like a rite of passage in New Zealand. You know, if you hold your liquor, you are sort of successful.
It becomes like a kind of what you've got to do more than anything. Like, you're not the cool kid if you're in the corner just watching. You've got to be the one that's drinking, the one that's being the party.
The one that's being the party. There's a lot of pressure. And the problem is that this culture doesn't only affect those who are subscribing to it. As I will talk and allude later, it affects the people who don't subscribe to it by being marginalized, ostracized, bullied. Now, the problem is that these people don't get drunk and sit in a paddock and they sleep it out. No, they do things. Now, let me put it this way. If I take all of you guys, whether you are rich or poor or educated or uneducated or have high moral values or don't have high moral values, and I give you propofol, all of you will sleep to start with. You will lose your consciousness. However your strong will is. Even if you are Michael Jackson, you could die if you are not attended by an anesthetist. Now, if I give you alcohol, it's a matter of dose related. You will relax first with the first drink or two, and then something else will happen, which I'll talk about in a second. And then, if you take more, you lose your consciousness. If you take more, you lose your life. So now, where is Bob Makary? He's not here? Right. Is his wife here? No? Here she is. Right. What do you think, Tina? What do you think stops your husband from pinching women's bottom in the street? Even if nobody's looking, what do you think stops Bob Makary from pinching women's bottom in the street? Right? It's called inhibition. So this is the first thing which goes after the inverted comma relaxation. To start with, inhibition goes. And inhibition is what stops the man in the street from behaving like the ram in the paddock. You drink a bit too much alcohol and you lose your inhibition, which leads to the second S, which is the abuse of sex. And when I talk about abuse of sex, I'm not talking about sexual abuse, which I'm coming to in a minute. I'm talking about abuse of sex as a commodity, downgrading it from lovemaking into a meaningful relationship to paddock mating. And in the paddock, there are 4 things missing: love, commitment, respect, and family. So, how bad is the problem? And how are we shooting ourselves in the feet? Again, you remember, do not steal handbags from old women. We set the bar too low. With the culture of, if you can remember what happened yesterday, you haven't had enough fun, it means that it's absolutely perfect to sleep with anybody who happened to be next to you in the party, so long as you don't catch an STD or an unwanted pregnancy. So if we change sex education into a contraceptive lesson, listen to that. This is very dangerous, because contraception does not protect against promiscuity. It actually helps it. So I'm not against contraception. I'm a gynecologist. I know that there is a role for it. I know when used properly, it does a good job. It's about family planning. But if we use it as a tool to promote promiscuity and not address promiscuity as a problem, and which could be possibly bigger than unwanted pregnancies and STD, we are failing our young people. And we are not only failing our young people, we are failing our society in general. So, is promiscuity a problem or not? Is it a bad thing or is it okay? So, is it related to binge drinking and is ruining the lives of people or not? So, how bad is the problem and how are we shooting ourselves in the feet? The problem is really bad. Really, really bad. It can't be worse. In the Durex study 2007, New Zealand came as the most promiscuous nation in the world, with the average number of sexual partners per girl in the study of 22. And it was the only country in the world where girls are more promiscuous than boys. Again, we're shooting ourselves in the feet. We're trying to do something good, which is try to stop unsafe sex. But we were doing something bad, which is promoting, inverted comma, safe sex. So we are saying it's absolutely fine. Sex is a sport, you practice it so long as you are wearing the right gear, which means if you avoid STD and if you avoid unwanted pregnancy, it's fine, go for it. But are there consequences?
Not always. She's 14, lost her virginity at 13. Just the one partner or more?
One more.
More than one?
Yeah.
How many do you think?
15.
15 boys. Mm-hmm. We can't identify her. She's still legally a child, still at school. But already she's had an STD and a pregnancy test. Have any of your friends got pregnant?
Yeah. 2.
2 have got pregnant. Did they have the baby?
One of them did.
A lot of people would say 15 partners at the age of 14 is promiscuous. Do you see yourself being promiscuous?
No.
How would you describe yourself?
Experimenting.
Right. I do apologize for the contents I'm going to show you now, but this is not about a politically correct presentation. This is about telling you the truth as it is. Okay? So I do apologize for the language, and if anybody can't put up with it, I'm really sorry. So, where is this taking us?
Like, for the boys, what's the roughest thing you've ever heard happen to a girl down here? Like, get thrown around by the boys. What's the roughest thing you've heard?
Spit roast, eh? That was the last night. One in the puss, one in the mouth, eh? One in, mate. Spit roast. One in the puss, one in the mouth.
This is what I'm talking about, paddock behavior. This is objectifying the girls and treating them like ewes in the paddock. And this cannot be conducive to making them feel great about themselves. And we produced a documentary, a complete documentary, and one of the reasons why this guy was making this documentary was that he was talking to one of his wife's friends. She was so proud that in the orientation week, she slept with 20 guys in the university. And he said, no, I have to do something about it. So if we are going to claim this sexual behavior as a source of pride and invent a word, studies, unfortunately, we are removing from the dictionary another very good word with the most beautiful meaning, which is mum. And this is a direct effect of this way of behavior. This takes us to the third S, which is stability of relationship. So, now, when you have this level of promiscuity, and sex is a sport, is this conducive to stable relationships? Do you think this will be conducive to these people being able to maintain relationship? I want you to listen to these two people, and then I will let you hear the third person. This is Mary, a patient of mine. Listen what she says about her husband.
Much as I did 58 years ago, Eddie, I'm more mature now.
And what do you think is the secret? And what do you think is the secret of that?
Oh, give and take, and trust in one another. It's so sad now that there's still a lot of lovely kids out there. It will turn a full cycle, I hope.
So she's saying that she loves her husband the same way she loved him 57 years ago. At the time of romance, at the time of dating, at the time of good relationships.
I work with young people aged between 13 and 16. They go out on the weekends and quite regularly come back to work on a Monday with hickeys all over their necks, down their chests. When you talk to the children about this, boys and girls, they will reply that they don't know who they have been sleeping with or the number of people they've slept with. It always tends to be as a relation to alcohol and drugs from a heavy binging weekend that they've had. And they don't care about this.
She's saying she works with children and says you come after the weekend all covered in hickeys and they can't remember who they slept with. Now, so this way, this culture cannot be conducive to stable relationships. Now, I want you to hear this charming young lady who summarizes, and I do apologize for the contents.
For yourself, what do you think like the average person nowadays looks to get out of a relationship?
Rudies, sex, good tap, and that's about it really. Because I mean, fuck, you're young, go hard, eh?
How is rooting a relationship though?
Well, you're having sexual relations with them. Rooting is sexual relations, so that's a relationship, isn't it?
Do you think the relationships and what you're doing now will affect your marriage one day?
Probably, but I mean, that's the risk you got to take, isn't it? You're young, dumb, full of cum. Fuck. That's it, really.
I will say no more. So, the relationship stability goes out of the window. I was attending a conference in gynecology, about the biggest conference in contraception, and this was about commitment. So, with the older women I was mentioning now, this is like the love of the hunt, the romance, the dating, and these guys now, with this culture, they are shooting in the paddock. It's boring, it's not stimulating, it's denigrating, it's offensive. So now, what can we do about it? In this conference, I learned that in some countries, less than 1% of the girls end up having sex with somebody who doesn't become their long-term partner or husband. And these people have a pair of testicles and pair of ovaries, and they have hormones. So why, in this part of the world, there is this commitment, there is this intimate relationship, which doesn't seem to be existing here, or it's going out of the window? Is it because the deal to commit is made under the effect of alcohol? Is it because it is made under the age of 13? Is it because it is never made and this is not an issue anymore? It's just me worrying about something which is not important. So with the stability of relationship going out of the window, relationships become disposable. And this disposability of relationship leads to a new shape of society where the family as its inverted comma usual form is disappearing. And here I'm not talking religion, I'm not evangelizing, I'm not talking God, I'm not talking marriage even. I'm talking civilization. Stick to the basic, civilization, man, woman, and children. Is it a good idea to have the family as a building block of society, man, woman, and children? Or is this example an old way which we can do without? And as Bob was saying, we have now the lowest marriage since 1971. There has been a drop of almost 65–70%. Now, I know that some of the children from single-parent families excel. They could become prime minister, minister of social affairs. I understand that, but there is a huge difference between a single-parent family, which became single-parent because the father died or the mother had breast cancer, and between a single-parent family because the father defaulted or ran away with another woman. There's a huge difference which affects the psychology of these children and their makeup and what they will become in the future. We know that 60% of youths who commit suicide had a parent with substance abuse. We know that 50% were in SIF, and I'm not saying that SIF doesn't do a good job. I'm saying that a broken family is a catalyst for a lot of the symptoms which will develop later on. Which leads us to the fifth S, which is the safety of society or lack of it, or the symptoms of the problem. So these are the symptoms. The first one, and please note that the fifth S and the fourth S have got arrows in both directions. Like you can drink and go to the symptoms within half an hour, and you can feed the symptoms through the circle over the years. This woman was sitting in my living room saying that. And this is Jenny Brokenshire.
Jenny Brokenshire can tell you how alcohol can destroy families. In April, Her 16-year-old son William was stabbed to death in Oamaru. His assailant had been drinking.
I've got a little one and she doesn't understand. We go to visit the gravesite and she jumps out and she goes, I'm going to find Will. It's like, we'd all like to.
Jenny has lost a son. So too have the parents of the boy who killed William. He's charged with murder.
People don't sometimes intend to kill somebody, but it happens, accidents happen. And a lot of it is because there's no stopping them. They want to get a few beers in them, they do.
So we have now one of the highest violence incarceration rate in the world. When I came here to New Zealand 20 years ago, I used to know all the people who were murdered by name. Ben Smart, Olivia Hope, Ben Smart. Now, you open the front page of any newspaper in the country and you will see a homicide. Why? Why? Depression. 1.2 million scripts for depression in 2008 or 2009 in a 4 million population. Why? Why? Is this related to what we are talking about or not? And most of problems with depression are related to relationships. And if you go back into the circle and you see the unstable relationships, the sense of betrayal, etc., is what makes people depressed. I'm not saying that every single case of depression is caused by that, but I'm saying there is a lot of overlap here. Youth suicide. We have the highest youth suicide rate in the OECD, double that of the United States of America and Australia. So why do we have the highest youth suicide rate in the world? People don't know. I do. Because I have the best seat in the house. Everybody is trying to investigate. I'm an eyewitness of the crime. Because of the limited time, I don't want to tell you now how many hats I'm wearing, but there are 3 people in the country who are wearing as many hats. And I'm seeing this. So when people say, oh, this guy killed himself, we don't know why, I usually do, because I have inside information. The personality is still being made. The beam can take as much. If a man gets betrayed, or if a man is in a bad relationship, or his wife slept with another guy, etc., he finds it difficult. If a young guy finds this, and he cannot cope with it, I'm not glamorizing suicide here, but what I'm saying is that it is not coincidence that we have the highest binge drinking rate in the world, and the highest promiscuity rate in the world, and the highest youth suicide rate in the world. We need to be dumb and stupid to think that this is coincidence. So it is time to address promiscuity as a catalyst for these problems as well. Sexual assault and rape. I explained at the beginning the relationship between RTDs and sexual assault. And because of the limited time, I don't want to go in details about that, but there is a difference between the abuse of sex and sexual abuse. Abuse of sex, I talked about it, downgrading it as a commodity from lovemaking to paddock mating, which happens within the first minute, once they are really completely drunk. But the sexual assault and rape could happen to innocent people who are not partaking into this, to people walking in the street minding their own business. And gosh, I come across these people and I know how they feel when they get raped.
Do you think there's a danger with girls who get absolutely plastered and then sleep with a guy that they don't know? And
Yeah. I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can fix it.
So she's acknowledging that there is a problem, that she can get drunk and she could get raped. But how can you fix it? Right. Road toll and carnage. One death too much on the road is one death too much. And this is a door behind which my daughter was sitting. The thing which is there in the center of the car, this was the door. This. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. My daughter is becoming a doctor. She survived it. But many people don't. And many people do not wake up from the nightmare. I keep reminding myself how lucky I am by having the clothes which were torn from around her to save her life when the car was cut into too many pieces. And I find it unbelievable. I find it unbelievable. How can we look at anybody in the face? And we know that 50% of fatal car accidents in New Zealand are associated with alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And we don't check, by the way, regularly for drugs. How can we look at the eyes of anybody who lost his child on the road and say it's perfectly all right to have the highest legal driving limit of alcohol, 0.08, compared to 0.05 like the rest of the world? How can we convince anybody of those that it's perfectly all right for a man to have 7 stubbies in the last 2 hours and be driving on the opposite side of the road of this child? Why would your children be on the road when somebody legally has had 7 stubbies and driving on the opposite side? I keep asking the question and nobody is answering. You know what? There are 300 international papers about that. And the cost of not lowering it is 137 times bigger. Financially. Forget about the lives, even financially. Why? What is the wisdom of that? Why do we think the whole world is wrong and we are right? Today, I'm getting to a stage where you have to take over because I'm tired. It's years now I've been doing that. And I wish the Prime Minister attended the talk, but unfortunately he didn't. So, this is a circle of decivilization or social decay. Now you understand it, and this is a diagnosis. Now you understand the diagnosis. How can we treat that? Solution. I will just put the solutions and then I will go rapidly through them one at a time. Apply medical science principle to social illness management. Decrease demand, not just decrease supply. Discredit the ideology. Work at all levels simultaneously. Decide the ownership of the problem and the captainship of the management. I don't have the time to talk about how not to solve the problem because I was going to draw an analogy with the war on terror, the way it is conducted now and how you spend the trillions shooting yourself in the feet. But because of time restraint, I was going to explain it, but forget it now. Apply medical science principle to social illness management. In medicine, concentrate with me, please, forget about the hail. In medicine, what do? We diagnose and then we treat. We don't just treat symptoms. We have to treat the cause of the problem. And what is the cause here? The cause here is a culture which says, if you can remember what happened yesterday, you have not had enough fun. Which means it's absolutely fine to be drunk so long as you don't drive. It's absolutely fine to have sex with whoever happened to be next to you in the party so long as you don't catch an STD or an unwanted pregnancy. So this is the diagnosis. This is the problem. This is what needs to be treated. I'm not saying don't treat the symptoms, but which is the violence, the rape, the sexual assault, the road toll, the depression. These are the symptoms. The same like in the terrorism. The terrorism is the symptom. Yes, they are criminals. But how do you diagnose the cause? The ideology. This is an ideological war. And as with terrorism, you can't beat it with the bullets, you have to beat it at the ballots. Here, You have to change what is in people's heads. So the best way in medicine is to immunize. It's always cheaper and easier. So how do we immunize against this problem? How do we decrease demand, not just decrease supply? So what do I mean by decrease demand, not just decrease supply? Decrease supply, very easy. Recommendation of the Low Commission Alcohol, Sir Jeffrey Palmer reports, and this was alluded to: raise the price, reduce sale in the supermarkets, reduce advertising, blah, blah, blah. But reduce demand, what does reduce demand mean? Studies in the United States have shown that if you work only in reducing supply, you wouldn't succeed. You need to teach to reduce demand. You will hear that people say education doesn't work. I think this is an incomplete or incorrect sentence. Late education doesn't work, wrong education doesn't work. And the motto, if you try to change a child after the age of 5, it's dangerous. It wouldn't work. So, how do you immunize? How do you reduce demand? You have to discredit the ideology that in the pursuit of happiness, people have to be drunk or drugged. That in the pursuit of happiness, people should sleep with as many people as they can get. So we have to stop normalizing, advertising, glamorizing, and idealizing. Because you will not stop something by going down this way. You have to stigmatize it. We have to stigmatize it. And Mr. Cameron, David Cameron in England recently is going along this way. Stop sexualizing children, stigmatize defaulting husbands or defaulting fathers. So we have to stigmatize. How do we stigmatize? We have to work at all levels. Right. So let us start with this little child here. We have to teach this 3 or 4 years old child that it's absolutely fine to go to mom or dad and say, look, I love you, but I really get scared when you get drunk. If you love me, please don't do that. This way you are using the most powerful thing in life, the love of a parent to a child. It is much stronger than the worry about the fine from the policeman or the worry about getting caught drunk driving. We have to get this 7 or 8 years old girl to start thinking, who has got the better deal? Nana, who still loves granddad and they hold the hand and he kisses her and he calls her honey? Or my sister, who keeps coming drunk every weekend with a different guy in bed and she's always crying? This generation, which I call the lost generation, there is blood spilled on the floor now. My management is about stopping the bleeding, treating the cause, clamping the bleeding artery. So the parent, this one, has to go to the child and say, look, don't repeat my mistake. Don't repeat my mistake. I here quote an example which the Prime Minister will have remembered. One day a girl said to me, Dr. Makary, in one of those presentations, she was crying at the back, a doctor, yeah, lady, and she said, look, I said, did I say something offensive? She said, no, you touched my heart. I said, what? She said, we are 27 cousins in the family and 23 of us became drug addicts. Some of us took up prostitutions to be able to pay for it and some committed suicide. I said, would you tell this to Jonki? She said, yes, I would. I put her in front of him in the evening. She tells him the story. After she finished, she came and told me in front of my wife. I actually told him, but I didn't tell him everything. I said, what do you mean? She said, my mother is a drug dealer and my brother is a policeman. So if a drug dealer can teach her children not to touch the stuff, then any parent can. This Nana and the grandfather, they have to step in and fill the gap when there is no good role model at home. People are saying Albert Makary is trying to start the Nana revolution, and the answer is yes. I'm trying to start the Nana revolution. I'm trying to take the society back to where it was, because I think the Nana's generation is the generation when civilization peaked. and there is a lot of resources. Nana represents all what is wholesome, true, uncorrupt, clean, wise. She is always there for the children and the grandchildren. There is enormous amount of talent and dedication which you can draw from, and it is free, and she will love it. Now, so they have to step in community. Now, we have to use what we are strongest at to defeat and remove what we are worst at. New Zealand is the best country in the world when it comes to caring, communities, looking after one another. This is not my words, this is world statistics, all right, and polls. So the best country in the world for caring. So you have in these communities many people who are willing to drive ambulances, John, to drive fire trucks. Who looks after the fire service in New Zealand? Mostly volunteer. So these guys, you can mobilize their efforts, and they will love it, and the children will love it, especially when there is no good role model at home, and Christine Rankin will understand this better than anybody else because of her previous role. These guys have to take these children and teach them how to get their buzz from catching a fish, from sliding down the slope, from doing the trick on the bike, from lighting the fire beside the tent, from giving a hand to somebody to stand up rather than beating the hell of somebody to get him to the ground. These people are there. There are hundreds of thousands of them, and their services are free. Nothing I'm asking for today costs money. It saves money. Schools. Schools, we have to dissociate alcohol from sports. We can't have sponsorship for sport. We can't take the player of the day and get him sculling alcohol as a celebration. We can tomorrow, and that's why I'm sad that John Key didn't attend. From tomorrow, we can get these schools to mobilize their talents and to mobilize their people to start stigmatizing this. How do you do that? Go, and the lesson tomorrow in the morning could be who writes the best article about alcohol abuse or binge drinking? The best poem, the best act. And take the best people from the schools and get them to have their photo taken with the Prime Minister or with the All Blacks. Media. The media should stop bad advertising. And by bad advertising, I mean not only drunkenness as an acceptable way, but bad advertising sexually. You can't put a program called The Bachelorette and then confuse this 8 or 9 years old girl who sees this girl sleeping on Monday with this guy, Tuesday with this guy, Wednesday with this guy, Thursday with this guy, Friday with this guy, and it's all fun and game. Which one of the 7 she slept with which she will choose to be with at the end? You are confusing this little girl. You are normalizing promiscuity in her head as an acceptable way of behavior. I can show you an example, one example or so from a complete media campaign I made about that. And sport idols, I keep saying, please, if I can get Richie McCaw, Dan Carter to say, if you drink to get drunk, you are a bloody idiot, and you could become a criminal. And if you drink and drive, you are a criminal. I tried my best. Because of time restraints, I will not be able to tell you much more. There are people now who are happy to do that, but not, unfortunately, in the famous stars. And if I can use your context to get these people to say this would be great. So the role models. I'm having some important people now who are happy to be role models, but I need the media. I understand? Government. The government now, they need to stop acting like politicians, and they need to start speaking like clinician. What do I mean? When I find the patient with cancer coming to see me, I don't say, oh, how much money can I make out of her? I'll treat the cancer, the money will come as a byproduct. Politicians as well, I found that they don't have evergreen jobs. So the business of the votes and the elections is always in their mind. There is a second ranking as well of civil servants who run the country. So it's not just what the politician wants, they will change straight away. We need them to start working like judges rather than like lawyers. Good bedside manners are good, but they are not enough. The cancer has to be diagnosed and treated. So, today I'm at a stage where I either have to give up or carry on, because I tried my best. I've been on Sunday program, I've been on Campbell Live, I've been on Breakfast, I've been everywhere. I am asking for the ownership of the problem to be adopted by everybody. And I understand here there are 80 organizations represented in you guys. I want as well the government to own, and I'm encouraged by what Prime Minister has said. He seems to have a clear idea on what needs to be done, but the thinking has to be translated into action. So the captainship of the management, the A-team, why don't we have an A-team from Doug Selman, Professor of Psychology and Head of Addiction Institute in New Zealand, Paul Quigley, representing medicine, Peter Boshier, Principal Youth Court Judge, Children Commissioner John Angus, or the new one, Judy Bailey, Bob McCoskey, somebody representing National, somebody representing Labour. And this team sees how we can stigmatize binge drinking. I explained how big the problem is and how we are shooting ourselves in the feet. I cannot do this on my own. But with many like thinkers, you can move it. The Scrum can move it. I want you to think about your children. Nobody's immune. Nothing is more important than our children. The team and the captain and the structures have to be established. Otherwise, it will be just talk. So today, I'm asking you, are you happy to have your children drunk and falling in the gutters, lying in the gutters every weekend? Or is there a better way of having fun? I'm asking you, do you want your daughters to be loved by this special person and adored by this special person? Or do you want them to be, and to make love in a meaningful relationship, or do you want them to be treated like using the paddock? Do you want your daughters and your children to have stable relationships? Or is promiscuity is okay and the average number of sexual partner of 22? Do you want relationship to be disposable or are permanent? Do you want the family to be the building block of the society, or a human paddock is fine? Do you want to see, is it okay to have 125,000 calls family violence a year? Is it all right to have 50,000 cases of child abuse a year? Is it all right to have the highest youth suicide rate in the world? Or is it time for a change? I will just spend 30 seconds. I will not show the ads I produce. You can see this in the interval if you like. But I will say one thing. One day, a village was harvesting, and one child got lost. They kept looking and looking and looking for the child. They couldn't. The following morning, an old guy said, the whole village stand in a row, hold hands, and walk together. You will find the child. They found the child, but he was dead. And the mother held the child in her arms and said, if just somebody thought yesterday that we should hold hands together, my child would have been alive now. I'm asking you to hold hands together so that we stop people burying their children. Thank you.
أمينة الناس نامت يا أمينة الناس نامت This was almost 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Yeah. We brought to the country. I have been communicating with Family First, and Bob McCoskey, the head of Family First, said we wanted to bring to New Zealand a very special woman. I want you to take note of what I'm going to say now and take the names, please. And I supplied Mina's information. Her name is Dr. Miriam Crossman. And Miriam Crossman is, we brought her to New Zealand, and she spoke the year after me, and she is youth psychologist in the universities in the United States. She's the one who wrote the book about sex education fallacies, and the book is called You Are Teaching My Child What? I invite you to buy this book as a resource in the church. As well, she wrote a book called Unprotected, where she met with many thousands of young women whose lives were destroyed. And she called the book Unprotected because of the same points I was discussing, that when we discuss sex, we talk about safe sex, i.e. to avoid STDs and to avoid unwanted pregnancy. And nobody is addressing the psychological implications in the head. In her book, I'm just talking about Miriam Crossman, and then I will tell you what happened next one. In her book, she explains the difference in neurochemistry between the brain of the woman or the girl and the brain of the man, and the role of the hormone oxytocin in building confidence, and how the girl wants a bonding, wants to make a family, wants a love nest. And we brought Miriam Crossman and we put her on television on Close Up. And after I gave this presentation, they pitched me about, you understand the word pitch me? حطوني ضد an expert with a PhD in casual sex. Her name was Panty Farfield. والفضيحة, scandal was on New Zealand Herald for 9 days in a row. What saved me, and I continued to do my job, and the women kept coming to me, was that they made a referendum in the New Zealand Herald, because they put inflammatory articles. The editors tried to sell newspaper and put something like, imagine titles in the New Zealand Herald, New Zealand women promiscuous, doctor, without the inverted comma, because I didn't say that. You could hear what I said. I said research showed that we had the highest promiscuity rate in the world, with average number of men of 22 by the age of 32 for women, 22 sexual partners. So this is not my opinion. I'm not judgmental. I'm just saying the result of research. Or the following day, they say, oh, New Zealand women treat sex like paddock mating. I didn't say that. I said, if people sleep with people they don't know, this is not love making, this is paddock mating. كل ده طلع. المهم ان نيوزيلندا voted 80, like 4%, 85% in New Zealand Herald referendum. I don't know, Albert Makary is not talking nonsense, this is the truth. And this is what saved my neck. So where do we go from here? Sex education got exposed, and it was the front page of the newspapers every day for many days. And ولما مريم كروسمان جات وطلعت على كلوز اب وطلعت في programs, الناس راحت شافت, people went and checked what the children get taught at schools, and they realized that this is what the sex education was like, a license to have sex, saying people will have sex, so they might as well do this, do that, and nobody is talking about the psychological implications, nobody is talking about other options. So as a result of that, Abuna, there was a select committee in the parliament which discussed sex education, because a lot of the curriculums of sex education was written by the the LGBT, lesbian, gays, and homosexuals, promoting their agenda in the education system. So people were up in arms, and the sex education got looked at, and the select committee was formed in the parliament, and some of the things in the sexual education got changed. On the alcohol front, the law changed about the legal driving limit. This got changed. It's more or less better than before. What was not changed is advertising. What was not changed is selling the alcohol in the supermarket. What was not changed is the discrediting of ideology very well about drunkenness. And what was not changed is sponsorship of alcohol to the politics and the sport. So as Judy Bailey, some of you know Judy Bailey used to tell the news, read the news, you called her Mother of Nations. Albert, the problem is the alcohol industry has the parliament and the sport sewn up. يعني متحكمين في الاثنين. في يوم من الأيام one day Jim Anderson في البارلمنت قال لهم how much is the alcohol industry contributing to the victory fund to re-elect the government. And my own member of parliament, Joe Goodhue, spent 2 hours disqualifying the question so that it doesn't get asked in the parliament, let alone answered. So the solution, Abuna, is discrediting the ideology and not promoting this as normal behavior. And in this, we have to use all the resources, the church, the family, the school, etc. It's a big problem. It's a huge problem. And in one of my presentation, I presented 3 dead people from patients of mine or their partners or husbands who killed themselves as a consequence of that. The church has to start playing a bigger role in discussing this openly. So change has happened, but it is not enough. And the way to sort this out is the way we sorted out smoking indoor. Nobody now can smoke indoor in front of a 5-year-old child. A 5-year-old child will say, stop, what are you doing? That's not on, that's not acceptable. So the way the society at all levels work together to stop smoking indoor is the same way the society has to work together with a structure, with a captainship, discrediting the ideology of drunkenness is okay, or casual sex is okay, or sex is a sport with no mental implications and psychological implications. Anybody wants to ask a question? Can you, is this Mina? Can you come closer a bit to the thingy? And thank you, Mina, for organizing this. Yes, Habib, انت قمر. Go ahead. Yes, Habib. You are wonderful. Say it again. Right. Both. What is happening is that in some of the drugs are stimulants, and the most famous of them is obviously amphetamine, the most addictive substance on this planet. And amphetamine is so addictive that if one is to try it once, there is an 87% possibility that person becomes an addict or a prostitute to serve the habit, and they would kill for it. And if you go to any criminal lawyer in the country or in the Western world now, he will tell you that more than 50% of the crimes are committed under or because of the wish to obtain the amphetamine, which is ice. As far as in the drinks, they mix, the alcohol companies try to get people to drink more. So in the past, people used to drink and fall asleep a bit, but now they mix the alcohol with the likes of caffeine. So it takes an extra 5 drinks roughly to feel sleepy or fall. But as I explained in the talk, the problem is that the half-life of the caffeine is shorter than the half-life of alcohol. So the alcohol works longer. So the girl suddenly starts losing consciousness once the half-life of the stimulant disappears, and she falls. Some of you might not have understood the word spiked, which was in the talk. The word spiked means the girl thinks that somebody put مادة مخدرة or a hypnotic in her drink, and that's why she got raped. But actually, no, it is because of the nature of mixing the stimulant with the alcohol in the RTDs. RTDs is ready to drink mixers, which are flavored with chocolate and sweets, etc. And lots of the girls drink them as well. That's right. Do you want me to be honest about that? I was introduced to drinking when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I just came from outside and I had a beer with my meal. But the answer to your question is this. The way and Jesus Christ was drinking with the disciples and was drinking in that, or the people were drinking. And that's why the verse in the Bible say, John came, didn't eat, didn't drink, and the Son of Man came eating and drinking. He was not talking about drinking molokhia or drinking fruit juice. He was talking about drinking alcohol. So the answer to your question is this. As I said, I was introduced to drinking at the age of 5 or 6, and I drank, but in a way that alcohol was portrayed, listen, as a celebratory drink, not as a defunct liquid. Alcohol was used as a celebratory drink, not as a defunct liquid. What does this mean? العيلة كلها مجتمعة. It is a feast. Everybody's having a drink. The little children have a little bit as a celebration, and that's it. I've never seen any of my family members drunk. So this is what you call celebratory celebratory drink. But what is a defunct liquid? A defunct liquid, يعني somebody is drinking to the extent that he wants his mind altered. And I was discussing this with the youth in Dunedin one day, and one of our Coptic young men said, so what is drinking? What is the point in getting on the piss if you don't want to be pissed? You understand his question? What is the point in being on the piss, i.e. drinking, unless you want to be pissed, i.e. drunk? So he wants to keep drinking till he gets drunk, and he thinks that this is the good way about it. This is really, what's the point in eating unless you stop being hungry? Is this what you wanted to achieve? You understand? So This is the crux of the matter. Damar batul faras. If you say maybe 0 and you release them at the age of 17 or 18 like a dog which was tied and release him, this might lead to abuse. But maybe introducing gradually and putting in their head that this is what it is for, not the other purpose, maybe this is what I found that it worked for me and it worked for my compatriots. Yeah. حبيبي 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 ازيك يا مايك. Hold on. Can you repeat the last bit, please? Carry on. I got you. I got you. I understood the question. It's a very good question. Very good question. And the answer, Michael, is this. The answer is this, Michael. The first effect of alcohol is not losing inhibition. It is the second effect. I don't want to change this meeting into advertising for alcohol, but the first effect of alcohol, it's a social lubricant. Meaning, if you get few people to sit together and they have one drink, they possibly will start laughing and chatting better with each other. So at the level of one drink, there is usually no loss of inhibition. There is just a bit more social. They start talking. They start laughing more. That's it. So the loss of inhibition is the second effect. Then the loss of consciousness is the third effect. And then the loss of life is the fourth effect. But very good question. Right, good question. The answer is if somebody is not sick, it's usually not toxic at this level. In fact, some papers have shown that red wine could reduce the risk of heart disease because it improves the triglyceride to cholesterol ratio. This might be controversial now a bit, but many papers have shown this in the past. So at very low level of one drink, I'm not talking about one drink every 2 hours or one drink every day, but the odd social one is not toxic. Having said that, regular use of alcohol is toxic and increases the risk of cancer breast. And there is no safe level we know of for drinking of in a pregnant woman. So the effect on the fetus and the fetal alcohol syndrome is dose related, but we cannot say that a low dose of alcohol is safe. So there has to be a zero alcohol consumption in these situations. Thank you, Habib. Sure. Very good question, and the answer is a bit complicated. استنى تعالى هنا انت رحت فين؟ ماشي. Very good question, and the answer is complicated. Number one, I am a disguised Christian in these meetings. And the reason I present it this way as a civilization problem, the purpose of that is not to limit my audience, i.e., if I present it as a social issue and lack of civilization, my audience will, in this country, will be multiplied by 40 to 50 times. I have had meetings in Takapuna with 700 attending, all headmasters and doctors and professors and psychologists and experts in child health. And if I presented myself, inverted comma, as an evangelist, I wouldn't have 15. This is number one. But your point is really valid because it is really simple. We are living in heaven. New Zealand is heaven. How come when we are living in heaven, we have the highest suicide rate in the world in youth? And the answer, you are correct. It is because when you take God out of heaven, it becomes hell. So there is no bigger security in the world against all these things than Jesus Christ and the Christian teaching. Okay? But for people who do not know Christ and for people who do not know the Christian faith, and for the purpose of not reducing the scope of your audience, I presented it this way. But in religious meetings, when I talk, I include what I just said, that take God out of heaven and it becomes hell, as it is happening now. And hence you have the millions of script for depression, the broken relationship. Now, when you talk about marriage and the Christianity, etc., somebody did a PhD in what I'm talking, and you can Google this sentence, working for families, comma, Otago University, comma, Albert Makary. And what you will find is this. Somebody went and studied what the churches and the Christian teaching has done and how the church has handled sex and relationships and how I'm approaching it and what are the outcomes. And I will tell you the statistics now. In the past, people used, you understand the word cohabitation. Cohabitation means people living together with the purpose of if they get married. In the past, it used to be a prelude to marriage. Now, let us just live together and see how it goes, and if we get on, well and good. If not, كل واحد يروح لحاله. What is the outcome? The outcome in the first one, marriage, that by the age of 5, the children of this relationship, 94% are still married, 6% divorced. By the age of 16, 16% divorced, and 84% married. They still have parents at home. In the cohabitation, no God, no church, no Christian system. By the age of 5, 33% divorced. By the age that children are 16, there is a 66% possibility that the parents have split, i.e., only 1 in 3 children will have the birth parents still together by the age of 16. Does this have implications? Yes. A daughter in this household in adolescence has a 300% possibility of having an unwanted pregnancy and a termination of pregnancy. Not increased by 10% or 20%. If the father is not at home, if the birth father is not at home, there is 300% possibility that the that the listening girl will get pregnant and will have a termination. Thank you. اتأخرنا عليك. لا أنا بسمعك أحسن من غير ميكروفون. Ja. استنى يا ابونا، خلي الميكروفون بعيد عن بقك شويه. يا 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 Can I ask you a question? I just want to ask one question, Abuna. I fully respect this. I fully respect this, and I understand the two sides of the argument. But I want you to remind me, what was the first miracle of Jesus Christ? Yeah, was it wine which Jesus made or not? ممكن تنزل الميكروفون يا ابونا، مش سامعك. ابونا ممكن تنزل الميكروفون عن بقك سنه عشان اسمع. اسمع. ابعدي عن الميكروفون، ابعدي عن الميكروفون الله يخليك. نو مايك بليز. انا ما فهمتش اي حاجه من اللي ابونا قالها. تحت امرك. ايوه حبيبي. ايه ابعد عن الميكروفون وكلمني. نو انا افتكرت الناس زهقانه وعايزه تمشي. ده موضوع انا I spent years in this so I'm enjoying. ازيك يا فادي؟ انت فادي ولا اخوك؟ How are you فادي حبيبي؟ It's right حبيبي. Yeah. Yes. It's not alcohol then. Absolutely. I think that's a very good step in the right direction. Right. I think it is a great. Let me put it this way. Do you remember the video of the young children, the secondary school children, where the Sunday program narrator was sitting with them, and they said, yes, the society, the problem here is that everybody has to drink alcohol, everybody has to be drunk, blah, blah, blah. If you hold your alcohol, you look like an adult. It's a rite of passage. The word here, rite, is not R-I-G-H-T. It's a rite of passage like rituals. زي واحد بيتدشن إن هو يبقى آدم. So the problem is that a lot of children and young people get ostracized if they don't drink and if they don't get drunk. So I'm all for the zero alcohol drink. I'm all for the non-alcoholic drinks. And I think it's a great idea so that people appear as if they are socializing, because it would take some time to solve this social illness. أنا عايز بس أقول لك حاجة على normalized بالنسبة لأولادنا. كان زمان أبونا بيقول في الكنيسة الخطايا التي فعلناها بإرادتنا والتي فعلناها بغير إرادتنا، التي فعلناها بمعرفة والتي فعلناها بغير معرفة. كله فهمني أنا بقول إيه؟ No, I can translate. So Abuna in the Mass says, forgive us for the sins which we did knowledgeably and unbeknown to us. And I really used to think, look, how come somebody does a sin and doesn't know it's a sin? This is just sort of ridiculous. We know what sin is and we know what's not sin is. And guess what? In the last 29 years, I have not asked a girl who came, young girl, who came pregnant with her mother, sort of regretting that she was sexually active. She regrets that she got pregnant. So none in the last 29 years said, oh no, this behavior, I will not do it again. Not a single one. The mother says, oh, she's a good girl, she uses contraception. She's a good girl, she will be more careful with the pill later on. So the society has normalized this completely, that it is not a mistake for this girl to sleep around, but it's a mistake for her if she doesn't take the pill. It's a mistake for her if she doesn't let the boy wear a condom, because this way she has not protected against herself against STD. So this takes us to the example of the parable of talents of Jesus Christ. We are the ones who were given the 10 talents, and we have to give account to them. The majority of the people in the rest of society don't know even that this is a sin or that this is wrong. That's yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. So the Spanish, the Germans get shocked when they see the pattern here, because they are more into responsible, inverted comma, drinking there as part of the meal. Sorry, what? Why do I? Sorry, I didn't get. Right. Excellent. Good question. the answer is, remember the young man in Dunedin who say, why go in the piss if you don't want to get pissed? So some people use it as a strategy for escaping daily pressures and hard things about life and work. And you have to remember that in Egypt, it's an Islamic country, but people do not get drunk, but bihasheshu. So substance abuse is widespread in the world. In the Anglo-Saxon area, alcohol is legal, hence it is the most common used drug. But other things are used in other places to alter the mind. So for example, in Holland, استعمال الحشيش كتير قوي. The use of dope and marijuana is very wide, and it's sold in cafes. Why is it that wide? There is a middleman, and there is a man who makes a huge amount of profit out of selling alcohol and promotes himself very well to the tune in New Zealand of $250,000 a day advertisement. And advertisement sells. And glamorizing things sells. If you look at the films in the 50s and the attitude to cigarettes and how to look, for a woman to look beautiful, she has to smoke in the films, and how the cinema stars all smoked. So these huge corporate companies make huge amount of money from selling their product. And they very successfully infiltrated the political system, and they support both sides of parliament by funding their re-election campaigns. And they support and promote themselves very well at all levels, including the schools and the sports. So in the sports team, what happens when the team wins? You know, أبونا مش هيفهم الكلام ده. لكن the team goes sculling. Sculling يعني إيه؟ يعني يركبوا له بتاع كده زي الحقنة الشرجية بتاعت زمان، بس بيرة وسكال سكال سكال يفضل يربع 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 لغاية ما يشرب له 2 3 4 لتر ورا بعض والباقي بيسقف. So the infiltration of the alcohol industry through the schools and the education and through the political system has maintained their hold on the society, big and old, to sell their product. And normalizing the drinking and normalizing the drunkenness and normalizing the binge drinking as a way of having a good time. Thank you, Habibi. Yeah, Habibi? Good, 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 don't worry. Okay, Habibi. Okay, Habibi. ليه؟ دول هيغيروا اسمها. Yes. How many people don't understand Arabic in the audience? Can you raise your hand, the one who doesn't understand Arabic? Okay. The answer to this is this. My confession father told me something when I was 12, and it still sticks in my head. And this is the way you teach your child. If you don't want to board the train, do not go to the train station. If you do not want to board the train, do not go to the train station. So, in our presentation today, I have shown the outcomes, and I've shown the bad effects, and I've explained that this is not conducive to happiness. This is conducive to despair. This is conducive to depression. This is conducive to becoming a criminal. This is conducive to having a mental illness. This is conducive to having broken relationships. This is conducive to divorce. This is conducive to family violence. This is conducive to road accidents. This is conducive to becoming a victim of a crime. So do you want to be there? Do you really want to go there? And then if you explain to him, if you try amphetamine once, there is this 87% possibility that your life will be ruined and that you will become a drug addict or a prostitute. Is this where you want to go? And when you talk sense to the child, and if you surround, they say the most important thing for a child are the 5 friends around him. So you have to be very careful saying who your child sits with. Enlighten the child about the outcomes and try to make them gang together in a good way, saying we don't want to do that, not because we are idiots, but because we know better. Together, whether they will end up saying 0, nothing whatsoever, use of alcohol, or whether they will go for the tiniest, honestly, without lying. That's it. But if it comes to any drugs, they need to understand that the marijuana increases the rate of schizophrenia almost 100-fold. They need to understand that this is the gateway to abuse of other drugs. They need to understand that there is something called tachyphylaxis. Tachyphylaxis in medicine meaning that to have the same effect, you have to increase the dose to get the same effect for drugs. You understand? So if you are using something to get your head high to a certain level, you will increase the dose gradually. This is part of the addictive drugs and the marijuana and the hashish and the amphetamine, etc., etc., etc. And you explain this to them. Sure. Of course, and many people choose that. If this is somebody's choice, it has to be respected. And it has to, they don't have to be made to look as fools. And the society has to respect this more and more. And I think two of my children never drink anything, 0. And this didn't make them less popular. They were, no, actually, one of them was bullied for this reason, big time. But we came through the other end. So it has, the society has to start respecting this. Whether this is the only strategy or not, i.e. 0 or very responsible, that's fine. It's like there is a woman who says, I will never eat chocolate. You know what I mean? We have to respect her if this is what she wants. I'm not saying that alcohol is like chocolate. But I know that in young people, the one who does not partake in this culture gets ostracized. Ostracized يعني يتهمش. Okay. What did you say about what? Smoking? About what? Vaping. Okay. I really wanted to have another session with you guys about sex because we won the Excellence Award in the Los Angeles Film Festival for our documentary. I think it's very good. You might have seen 2 minutes of it today, but it exposes everything like never before. But if you want to know about vaping, I can talk about it. Yes, it's fine. Okay. We can talk about marijuana or hashish. Yeah. Yes. Cannabinoids. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. No problem. Yeah. Yeah. One of the good things about this is if people stick together, and there is a group in Australia called Generation Next, which has exposed all the mental health problems, a group of professors and a group of academics, they invited me to talk with them. And when you have a large number, a bigger number of academics talking about it, it has a bigger impact on the society. So, but start talking, use the presentation, feel free to use the presentation, feel free to introduce this to other people, feel free to introduce it to other churches, please. Thank you, Habib. And thank you for staying late to listen to an old man. Thank you, Habib. Merci, Habib. ما تحرمش منك ابوي. باذن الله ما تحرمش منك. انا ما بحبش الميتنج. I find it easier to remove cancer than to sit in a meeting. ميرسي يا حبيبي ما تحرمش منك. باي باي. ميرسي برافو عليك.